A life worth reflecting on. Dear listener, if you're watching this, there's a quiet voice inside you asking a profound question. What does it all mean, this journey we call life? You've walked through decades. You've laughed. You've cried. You've built a family. You've buried dreams. You've celebrated love. You've endured pain. And now, in these quieter years, perhaps you're beginning to realize, time isn't waiting. At this stage, the truth comes in waves. That what once felt urgent no longer matters. That people come and go. That health is more precious than gold. That peace of mind is the rarest treasure of all. So let me offer you this journey not to teach you what you already know, but to gently awaken what your soul has always known. That life, while fleeting, holds beauty in every breath if we dare to pause and truly see. Let us walk together through 9 reflections, 9 ways of seeing this life with new eyes. Not to chase answers, but to find meaning. Not to escape aging, but to embrace it. And if this message touches you, I invite you. Subscribe to this channel. Stay with me until the very end. This journey is for you. Now, let us begin. 1. Life is like a play and you're still on stage. Let me begin with a simple image. Close your eyes, just for a moment, and imagine life as a theater. Not a grand one with red carpets and golden curtains, but a humble, sacred stage lit softly by time, where each of us steps into the light, one by one, and begins to play our part. Now here's the truth no one tells us when we're young. There's no script, no rehearsal, no second take. Just one long, unfolding performance, and every moment counts. You see, when we are born, it's as though the curtain rises for the very first time. The spotlight finds us, and the audience life itself waits in silence to see what kind of story we will live. As children, our roles are simple. We laugh easily, cry loudly, and dream without limits. We are supported by the hands of others, our parents, our teachers, those who hold our lines for us when we forget them. We don't yet know we are performing, and that innocence is part of the beauty. But as time moves forward, the role changes. Suddenly, we become responsible for the script. Suddenly, we are not just playing, we are directing. We are writing. We are holding the weight of every scene. We become the spouse, the mother, the father, the breadwinner, the caregiver, the silent sufferer. The lines get longer. The stage gets more crowded. The stakes feel higher. And somewhere along the way, without realizing it, we begin to act not out of joy, but out of duty. We smile when we want to scream. We carry burdens while pretending we are fine. We become experts in hiding pain behind polite expressions. That's adulthood, isn't it? Wearing masks not to deceive others, but to protect ourselves. To keep things from falling apart. To survive one more scene. But now, here you are. Perhaps past 60. Perhaps approaching 70 or 80. The theater hasn't closed, but the audience is quieter now. The spotlight is softer. The cast around you may have changed. Some have exited the stage. Some are distant in the wings. And you may be wondering, what role do I play now? It's a question so many of us ask at this stage in life. When the children are grown. When the work is done. When the applause has faded. When the house feels too quiet. You may feel like the play is over. But let me tell you something from the deepest place of truth. You are still on stage. And this final act can be the most meaningful of all. Because now, you don't need to pretend anymore. You don't need to impress. You don't need to please everyone. You can step onto the stage with your full truth, your full wisdom, and your full heart and simply be. You've earned that right. What would happen if you gave yourself permission to live without performing? To wake up each day not wondering what role others expect you to play, but what truth you want to live? What would your story look like if it was written not in obligation, but in authenticity? Maybe, for the first time, you can be the one who writes freely, who speaks your lines without fear, who laughs loudly again not for others, but for yourself, who cries when you need to, who takes a bone not because the play is ending, but because you've lived fully, courageously, and without regret. And yes, there will still be difficult scenes. There will be moments of loneliness, as the stage feels too wide. There will be pauses, when the lights dim and you wonder, is anyone still watching? There will be lines you forget, steps you miss, and days when you feel like the script has gone missing entirely. But listen to me. The value of your life does not lie in perfection. It lies in presence. You don't have to act anymore. You only have to live with all the truth you've earned along the way. And perhaps the greatest role you'll ever play now is simply being yourself. Fully, openly, quietly radiant. I once sat with an 82-year-old woman named Helen who told me, for most of my life, I was terrified of disappointing people. I said yes when I meant no. I smiled when I wanted to cry. I worked harder, stayed longer, gave more even when it broke me. Then she paused, looked at her hands aged, wrinkled, shaking slightly and said, "But now, I only perform for my soul." That sentence stayed with me. Because in the end, that's the audience that matters most. The quiet part of you that knows whether you've lived true or not. So if you find yourself today in the middle of a scene you didn't plan, maybe it's grief, or illness, or the silence after children leave, remember this. You are still the writer. You are still the actor. You still have time. And this stage you're on? It's yours. Not to fill with noise or approval, but with truth and grace. So write the lines you want to speak. Dance the steps you never dared to. Say what was left unsaid. Forgive what was long held. And take a bone not because it's the end, but because it's finally your beginning. This is your act. No script. No rehearsal. Only now. And it's enough. Let your life be the performance you're proud to remember. Let it be the story your heart has waited a lifetime to tell. And if you're still watching, still listening, I invite you. Stay with me for the next reflection. Because what comes next may change the way you see even the simplest blade of grass. 2. Life is like grass, beautiful, brief, and worth every breath. There's a quiet truth we don't always like to face, but it finds us sooner or later. It's the truth that life is fragile. Not in a fearful way, but in the way that a single blade of grass grows tall one day and is gone the next. In the way that spring brings blossoms, and autumn carries them away. In the way that even the mightiest tree eventually returns to the earth. And so, dear friend, I invite you to pause and consider. What if your life, and mine, is not unlike the grass beneath our feet? Soft, delicate, unnoticed by most, yet quietly persistent, and profoundly alive. In our youth, we thought ourselves invincible. We ran through fields without thought for the soil beneath us. We made plans for decades ahead, believing time would wait. We pushed, we pursued, we pressed forward, always forward. But age, in its quiet grace, begins to shift our focus. We begin to notice the morning light more deeply. We feel a breeze and remember someone we miss. We watch the seasons pass not just on the calendar, but in our bones. And suddenly, we understand something we never quite grasped before. This life is fleeting, and its meaning does not come from how long it lasts, but from how gently, and how fully, we choose to live it. The grass does not envy the oak. It doesn't wish to be taller, stronger, or more lasting. It simply rises with the dawn, dances in the wind, and bows when the time comes. Can we live like that? Can we grow gently, love fully, and let go when needed without bitterness, without regret? That's the wisdom of growing older. Learning to stop chasing things that do not matter, and start treasuring the things that do. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you stopped to appreciate the fact that you are still here? Not just alive, but aware. Not just surviving, but witnessing. Witnessing the way your grandchild smiles. The way the afternoon light stretches across your floor. The way your hands, though older, still know how to comfort, how to create, how to care. That's not small. That's not ordinary. That's everything. I once met an elderly man named Carl. He was 87, walked with a cane, and tended to a small patch of grass in front of his apartment like it was sacred ground. I asked him once why he did it. He smiled and said, "When my wife was dying, she asked me to keep something alive. I chose this grass. At first, I didn't understand. But over time, I did. Because Carl wasn't just tending to the earth. He was tending to memory, to love, to life itself. That's what we are called to do in this chapter of life, not to fight the passing of time, but to honor what still remains. Yes, our bodies may grow slower. Our energy may not be what it once was. But our presence, our awareness, our wisdom, they are deeper than ever. And like the grass, we don't need to be tall or grand to be meaningful. We only need to be real. There's a quiet power in living simply, in no longer needing to compare ourselves to others, in letting go of the exhausting race for more, in realizing that being enough is not a goal, it's a truth we return to. So if your life feels small right now, if you find yourself in a season of stillness, if you sometimes wonder, what value do I still bring? Let me tell you this. The grass never asks such questions. It simply grows, offers shade to a ladybug, food to a rabbit, comfort to a child who lays down to rest. Its presence is its purpose. And so is yours. Let go of the need to prove. Let go of the pressure to impress. You do not need to build mountains or chase the sun. You are here. You are alive. You are enough. And if you live today with gentleness, with gratitude, with grace, you have lived well. So many people reach the end of life not realizing they've spent it racing, chasing, grasping. And what for? To have more. To be noticed. To win. But grass does none of that. And yet it covers the earth in peace. It bends when the wind comes. It grows back after storms. It does not shout, but it stays. Maybe the goal at this stage is not to rise higher, but to root deeper, to sink into the moment, to stretch into connection, to soak in what is still beautiful. And when the time comes to let go, let us do so as the grass does, quietly, gently, with dignity, not fearing the end, but trusting the cycle. Because what matters most is not that the grass stays forever, but that while it lived, it gave what it could. And that is enough. Dear friend, your presence in this world, your smile, your story, your wisdom, is like the grass beneath someone's feet. You may not see the impact. You may not hear the thank you. But you are part of the soft, green ground that others walk on with wonder. So tend to your life. Even now. Especially now. Water it with kindness. Grow it with truth. Let it rise into the light of each day. Because your life is not small. It is sacred. And even if it passes like grass, it was beautiful while it lasted. 3. Life is like a game of chess and every piece has its purpose. When we are young, we think life is simple. Move forward. Win. Keep going. But age reveals something deeper. Life is not a race. Life is a game of strategy, of patience, of knowing when to advance and when to wait. Life, my friend, is more like chess. And if you've ever played chess, even just watched someone else play, you'll understand what I mean. On the surface, chess looks like black and white squares, pieces lined up like soldiers, rules to follow. But beneath that, chess holds the very essence of human life. It teaches us how to lead, how to fall, how to protect, how to sacrifice, and most of all how to think before we move. Let me explain. When we are children, we are like the pawn, small, seemingly limited. But pawns have one powerful truth: they can only move forward. Step by step. One square at a time. They cannot retreat. That's childhood. Always moving ahead, never fully aware of danger, never looking back. We rely on the protection of others, our parents, our teachers, to guard us. And just like the pawn, we begin our lives full of potential, even if we don't yet understand it. But as we grow older into adolescence, into early adulthood, we transform. Some of us become the knights, leaping over obstacles, unpredictable, bold. Some become the bishop's sharp thinkers, moving diagonally, seeing the world through angles and intuition. In our prime, we may feel like rooks, strong, steady, moving with purpose and force. Or even queens, capable, multitasking, powerful in all directions, often carrying the weight of the game. And if life has placed you in the role of caregiver, of decision maker, of silent leader, you'll know what it feels like to be the queen on the board. Moving endlessly, protecting everything, and often being the first to sacrifice for the sake of others. But with time, with experience, we find ourselves in a new place. Not always on the front lines. Not always moving quickly. We begin to feel more like the king, limited in motion, but central to everything. Valued. Watched over. Protected, not because we move fast, but because we matter deeply. And that is the truth most people forget. In chess, the king may move the least, but he is the most important. Dear friend, if you are in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, you may feel slower. You may think the world has moved past you. But know this: your presence, your wisdom, your stillness holds the very center of the board. Your life is no longer about rushing forward. It's about anchoring the space around you, holding meaning, offering perspective, being the reason others know where they stand. I remember visiting an old friend once, a man in his 80s named George. He had once been a successful lawyer, a man of energy, of arguments, of relentless movement. But when I met him, he sat most days on his porch, quietly watching the birds in his garden. I asked him, "Do you miss being in the center of it all?" He looked at me with the gentlest smile and said, "I am still in the center. I just no longer need to prove it." That was a king speaking, not of ego, but of knowing. You see, in chess, every piece plays its part. The rook cannot be the bishop. The pawn cannot be the knight. But together they form a whole. And so it is with life. We each have seasons. Moments when we charge ahead. And moments when we simply hold our space with grace. Sometimes we are the attacker. Sometimes the protector. Sometimes the quiet observer. But here's the catch. No move in chess should be made without thinking. And that's the wisdom we gain with age. To pause. To reflect. To consider the cost before taking a step. In youth, we leap. In age, we listen. And often, it's in that listening where life's greatest clarity comes. Have you noticed how, as you grow older, your circle gets smaller? Not because people disappear, though some do, but because you learn who truly belongs on your board. You begin to understand which relationships are worth protecting, which dreams are still worth pursuing, and which battles are better left unfought. That is not weakness. That is mastery. Just as a great chess player doesn't rush to win, a wise elder doesn't rush to speak, to fix, to explain. They wait. They watch. They move with intention. That is you. And if life has placed you in a season of slowness, perhaps due to health, or loneliness, or loss, please don't see it as the endgame. You are not being removed from the board. You are being asked to play a deeper strategy, to use your presence, your calm, your depth, to guide others, to ground your family, to remind this rushing world what stillness looks like. You are the steady king, the resilient queen, the wise bishop who sees diagonals others miss. You don't have to move far to change the game. Let that truth settle into your heart. Even a single move made with wisdom can change everything. So don't underestimate your place. Don't believe that being less busy means being less useful. Some of the most powerful moves in life happen in silence. Your very presence, rooted in love, in patience, in understanding, is a strategy the world desperately needs. And remember this. In chess, the goal is not just to win. It's to play well. To learn from each move. To value each piece. To protect what matters. And to find grace even in defeat. Because like life, no one wins forever. No one controls every outcome. We all lose pieces. We all face losses we didn't expect. But if we play with honor, with courage, with thoughtfulness, then win or lose, we have played a game worth remembering. So, dear friend, wherever you are on your board, whatever piece you feel you've become, know this: you still belong. You still matter. And your next move still has power. Let's continue this journey together. In the next reflection, we'll explore another timeless truth. That life, in all its unpredictability, is like a boat on open water where the real voyage begins when we learn to row for ourselves. 4. Life is like a boat you must row through your own storms. Life doesn't ask for our permission before it sends the waves. One day, the waters are calm, the sky is clear, and everything feels steady. And then, without warning, the winds shift, and you're caught in a storm you never saw coming. In those moments, life feels less like a plan and more like a boat. A boat you must steer. A boat you must row. Even when your arms are tired. Even when no one is rowing beside you. When we are young, we believe we'll always have companions, friends, lovers, family right there in the boat with us. And for a while, it's true. They cheer us on. They help us row. They share our burdens, our laughter, our tears. But over time, life teaches us a quieter, harder truth. Not everyone will stay for the whole journey. Some row beside us for a season and then step off at their own shore. Some disappear in silence. And some are taken away by forces we cannot control. If you've lived long enough, you know the ache of rowing alone. The silence after a spouse passes. The distance when a child grows up and no longer calls. The loneliness of being surrounded by people who don't really see you anymore. These are the storms of later life, not always loud, but deeply unsettling. So what do we do in these moments? We row anyway. Not because it's easy. Not because we are strong. But because the journey is still ours to finish. Because the waves may come, but we were never meant to drift aimlessly. I remember speaking with a woman named Teresa. She was 74, widowed, and had just moved into a small apartment after selling the home where she had raised her children. Her voice trembled when she said, "I didn't think I'd be starting over at this age. I thought I'd be anchored, settled. But now, I feel like I'm lost at sea." I sat quietly for a moment and then asked, "But are you still rowing?" She looked up, surprised, and after a moment, she smiled. "Yes," she said. "I guess I am." That's courage. Not flashy. Not loud. But steady. Quiet. Relentless. To row when you are afraid. To row when the boat feels empty. To row even when you don't know where the shore is because something inside you says, "Keep going." Dear friend, life is not always fair in how it distributes the storms. Some of us face more than our share: grief, illness, betrayal, abandonment. Some of us feel like we've been rowing upstream for decades while others drift with the current. But here's the truth. No one rows forever without becoming stronger. No one faces the sea and stays the same. Every calloused hand, every deep breath, every aching muscle from effort, it all adds up. To resilience. To wisdom. To a kind of quiet pride no one can take away. And yet, we must also learn something else. That it's okay to rest. Rowing through life doesn't mean constant motion. Sometimes, it means anchoring for a while. Pulling up on a quiet shore. Breathing. Listening. Letting the waves carry you instead of fighting them. You do not have to be strong every moment. Even boats must stop for repair. Even sailors must sleep. There is no shame in needing help. There is no failure in feeling lost. But don't let yourself drift too far from the compass inside you. The part of you that still wants to grow, to love, to explore even now. That compass doesn't break with age. It only grows quieter. And the more we listen to it, the more we realize. We still have journeys left to take. They may not look like they used to. They may not involve distant countries or grand adventures. But they are no less meaningful. Learning to live with yourself in silence? That's a journey. Making peace with your past? That's a voyage. Reaching out to an estranged friend or child, just to say I'm still here? That's an ocean crossed. You see, life on the water was never meant to be predictable. Some days are full of sunlight and calm seas. Other days, you feel like you're rowing against the storm of time itself. But both kinds of days are part of the same ocean. And one day, when this journey ends, when your boat comes to its final dock, what will matter most is not how fast you rowed or how far you traveled, but that you kept rowing, that you didn't give up, that you made meaning of the storms, that you stayed the course, even when you were afraid. So here's what I want you to remember today. You are still in the boat. You are still holding the oars. And there is still water ahead. Row gently if you must. Pause when you need to. Cry if it helps you breathe. But never forget you have already come so far. There are still sunsets waiting to be seen. Still shores you've yet to reach. Still people who need your story, your voice, your truth. So lift your head. Feel the breeze. And know that this life, this journey, it's still yours. And if ever you feel lost again, just ask yourself, am I still rowing? If the answer is yes, then you are exactly where you need to be. 5. Life is like wine, bitterness at first, but rich in depth. There's something timeless about a glass of wine. Perhaps it's the way it rests in the glass, quiet, unhurried. Perhaps it's the warmth it carries after a long day. Or perhaps it's the way it transforms with age, gaining complexity, becoming richer, deeper, more meaningful with every passing year. Just like life. You see, when we are young, life tastes different. It's sweet in places, but often sharp. Our experiences are intense, our emotions unchecked. We fall in love too fast. We grieve too hard. We dream too wildly. And we rarely stop to understand the deeper flavors because we are too busy chasing the next thrill. But time, like the aging of a fine wine, changes everything. The edges smooth out. The sweetness matures, and the bitterness, that sharp taste we once avoided, becomes something we learn to appreciate. Because it means we've lived. We've hurt. We've survived. And we are still here. Let me ask you something gently. Have you ever taken a sip of wine and thought, this tastes too bitter, only to realize later, when paired with the right food, in the right moment, with the right silence, it was perfect? That is how memory works. There are experiences you've had, losses, regrets, disappointments that once stung like vinegar. But over time, they settled. They taught you. They softened you in places the world had hardened. And now, they live inside you not as wounds, but as wisdom. That is what aging gives us. Not just more years, but more depth, more texture, more understanding of the flavors of life. In our younger years, we often drank too fast. We rushed through moments. We numbed our pain. We tried to forget by drowning our sorrows in distractions, in work, in business, and yes, sometimes even in wine itself. But the truth is, wine can't erase pain. It can only pause it. What truly heals us is reflection, stillness, the quiet courage to sit with what hurts until it teaches us something. I once sat with a woman named Maria. She was 79 years old, living alone after the death of her husband of 50 years. She poured me a glass of red wine and said, at first, after he died, I drank to forget. But now, I sip to remember. She paused, and with the softest voice added, every sip reminds me that real love doesn't vanish. It lingers, like good wine, deep in the bones. I will never forget her face. There was pain there, but more than that there was reverence. She had turned grief into gratitude, memory into meaning, and bitterness into beauty. That's the secret of aging well. Not pretending everything has been sweet, but learning to taste life with a more sensitive tongue. To recognize that even the bitter moments have value. That even sadness has a flavor worth honoring. Because if life were only sweet, we'd grow numb to joy. We need contrast. We need complexity. Just like a master winemaker seeks balance in acidity, tannin, aroma, and texture, so too do we find wholeness in the balance of our experiences. Think back on your own life. There were likely moments you wished you could erase. Perhaps a betrayal, a mistake, a moment of weakness, a loved one lost too soon, a dream left behind. And yet, without those moments, would you be the person you are now? Would you have the empathy you carry? The wisdom you speak with? The patience you've developed? The faith you now hold close? Bitterness, when we let it settle, becomes character. It teaches us what sweetness alone never could. Now, let me tell you another truth. The older wine gets, the more gently it should be handled. It must be stored in darkness, opened with care, poured slowly, tasted with intention. So too must we treat ourselves in our later years. We are not meant to be rushed anymore. We are not meant to carry every burden, fix every problem, please every person. We are meant to be savored. And yet, how often do we still criticize ourselves for not being as fast, as strong, as productive? But you, my dear friend, are no longer a young wine. You are something far rarer. You are aged. You are seasoned. You are full of memories, stories, emotions that cannot be bottled or replaced. You don't need to do more to be worthy. You only need to pour your life slowly, with grace, into each moment. And when others come to sit with you, your children, your friends, even strangers, they are not coming for your business. They are coming for your depth, your steady voice, your quiet knowing, the way you understand what truly matters. Just like a rich wine in an old cellar, your presence offers comfort. So let yourself be that presence. Let yourself be still. Let yourself be honored. Let yourself be enjoyed not for what you do, but for who you are. And if there are parts of your story that still taste sour, sit with them a little longer. Speak them aloud. Pray over them. Write them down. Tell them to someone who will listen. Because every drop of your life holds something sacred, even the parts you thought were too hard to swallow. And when your days grow quieter, when the world moves too fast, when you feel forgotten or invisible, remember this. Fine wine does not need a crowd. Its value does not diminish in silence. In fact, it deepens. You are not less because you are older. You are more. More layered. more meaningful, more necessary to those who know how to listen. So pour yourself gently into the time you still have. Celebrate your story. Honor your taste. And know that you just as you are worthy of being cherished. Even now. Especially now. 6. Life is like a song, bittersweet verses, eternal echoes. There's a melody that lives in each of us. You may not hear it every day. It may have gone quiet in seasons of loss or pain. But if you listen closely, especially in moments of stillness, it's there. Soft. Familiar. Deep in your chest. Because life, in all its mystery, is a song. And every life sings its own. Some songs begin softly, like lullabies, full of childhood wonder and innocence. Others start with a bold beat, loud, eager, untamed, like the roar of youth. But as the years pass, our melodies change. We add verses. We shift keys. We go from major to minor. From joy to sorrow. From fast-paced chapters to slow, reflective refrains. And through it all, we keep singing even when we forget we are singing. Because your life is not just something you live, it's something you compose. With every decision. With every goodbye. With every I'm sorry. With every I forgive you. With every silent tear and every loud laugh. It's all music. Some people reach old age and think their song is over. They believe the chorus has been sung, and all that's left is the quiet fade out. But I want you to know. As long as you are breathing, the music is still playing. And you still have verses to write. You see, great songs don't rush to the finish. They linger. They stretch. They return to familiar chords. They let the melody rise and fall. And sometimes, it's the bridge, the unexpected middle passage, that holds the most powerful emotion. Maybe you're in that bridge now. A place in life you didn't expect. A season you didn't plan for. You may be widowed, or caring for someone ill. You may be alone for the first time in decades. You may be facing questions that have no easy answers. But even now, especially now, your soul is still composing something real. I once met a man named Harold. He was 82, legally blind, and spent most of his days sitting in his living room with an old radio. When I asked him what he listened to, he said, "Whatever makes me feel something. Doesn't matter if it's jazz, gospel, or silence between two classical notes. As long as it stirs the heart, it's worth listening to." Then he said something I'll never forget. Some of the most beautiful songs don't make sense until you're old enough to understand the lyrics. Isn't that true? There are moments you lived through decades ago that only now finally make sense. A heartbreak you thought would break you now softened into wisdom. A missed opportunity that led to a better one. A tragedy that taught you compassion you never thought you'd need. These are the deeper verses of your life. You didn't ask for them, but you lived them. And now, they give your song a richness that cannot be faked. It's easy to love the high notes, the wedding days, the births, the triumphs. But your true song is in the low notes too. The whispered prayers. The nights you cried yourself to sleep but still woke up. The forgiveness you offered when no one said thank you. That is music. That is soul. And yes, there are also the songs we never finished. The ones we started but couldn't bring to life. The dreams left half sung. The people we meant to love better. The apologies we never gave. But even these unfinished songs have value. They remind us that life is not about perfection, it's about intention. It's about heart. And you've got plenty of that. So if you're wondering, what's the point of singing now? What melody could I possibly offer in these later years? Let me say this gently. The elder voice sings with a depth the young cannot reach. It trembles, yes. It may be softer, slower. But it carries the weight of everything you've ever endured and survived. And that voice is needed now more than ever. Maybe your grandchildren need to hear your story. Maybe a neighbor needs your calm presence. Maybe you need to sing for yourself for no reason other than to remember you're still alive. Your voice matters. Even if you're not standing in front of a crowd. Even if no one applauds. Even if it's just one note, whispered in the quiet of your home. Because music is not about volume. It's about resonance. And your life, dear friend, resonates. You are not just the listener anymore. You are the song. And one day when your song is done, others will hum its melody. In the way your daughter gently comforts her children, like you did for her. In the way your son chooses patience over anger, because he watched you do it so many times. in the way a stranger holds the door for someone, inspired by the kindness you once showed them. These are the echoes of your song. They live on long after the final note is played. So sing now, while you still can. With your words, with your hands, with your eyes, with your quiet presence. Sing to yourself. Sing to God. Sing to the memory of those who shaped you, and to the promise of what still lies ahead. Because life, like music, is not measured in how long it plays, but in how deeply it is felt. And your song, your life, has been felt by more people than you realize. So breathe in. Let your heart open. And write the next verse. You still have time. 7. Life is like the moon, beautiful in both fullness and imperfection. When we were young, we often looked up at the night sky and waited for the full moon. We loved its glow, its completeness, its silent, round perfection. We'd say, "Look, the moon is finally full tonight." And somehow, we believed that only in its fullness was it worthy of our admiration. But as we grow older, we begin to understand something far more profound. The moon is always beautiful, even when it's not whole, even when it's hidden, even when it's only a sliver of light fighting against the dark. And that, my dear friend, is the truth about life and about ourselves. We are not always full. We are not always shining. There are nights when we feel broken, days when we feel invisible, moments when we are anything but perfect. But we are still worthy, still beautiful, still enough. Life, like the moon, waxes and wanes. We have seasons of abundance when everything feels aligned, and the light pours from us. We have seasons of loss when we feel hollow, dim, unsure of where we are or where we are going. And yet, the moon never stops showing up, even when only part of it is visible, even when the clouds cover it, even when no one's looking up. It is still there. So are you. Let me ask you something gently. Have you ever looked at your life and said, "I wish I were whole again? I miss the days when I felt strong, when I was needed, when I knew exactly who I was." If so, please hear this with your heart. You are not less now. You are simply in a quieter phase. And like the moon, your light has not left you, it's simply changing form. In our youth, we strive for wholeness. We chase it with ambition, with love, with responsibility. We believe that if we just do enough, achieve enough, give enough, we will finally arrive at completeness. But what age teaches us what the moon teaches us is that wholeness has nothing to do with perfection. It has everything to do with presence. Can you be present in your life, even when things aren't perfect? Can you show up for yourself, even when you feel unseen? Can you offer yourself gentleness, even when you are tired, aching, or alone? That is real strength. That is quiet courage. That is the wisdom of the waning moon. I once sat with a woman named Joan, who had just turned 83. She had recently lost her eyesight and was adjusting to a world without vision. When I asked her how she was coping, she surprised me by saying, "I'm learning to see in other ways. I may not see the full moon anymore, but I feel its light on my face. And that's enough." Joan had learned something many of us forget. That even when we lose something, we do not lose everything. That even in our darkest hours, some light always remains if we are willing to feel it, not just see it. There will be times when you feel like a crescent moon, partially here, partially gone. Times when your energy fades, your body falters, your mind feels foggy. But that does not make you less of who you are. You are not your limitations. You are not your decline. You are not your wrinkles, your forgetfulness, your quiet days. You are your light. And that light still shines. Maybe more gently now. Maybe more humbly. But perhaps even more powerfully. Because it is no longer about impressing others. It is about being at peace with yourself. Think of the moon in its different stages. Is it any less majestic when it's half full? Do the tides stop responding? Do the poets stop writing? Do the lovers stop gazing? No. Because even in its incomplete state, the moon commands reverence. So should you. You are not only valuable when you are full. You are valuable when you are resting. When you are grieving. When you are growing. When you are simply being. And sometimes, it's in your quietest phases that you radiate the most wisdom. When you listen more than you speak. When you comfort without needing words. When you offer a presence that says, "You don't have to be perfect to be loved." That's the moon speaking through you. I want to remind you today, do not chase the light of your past. Honor it. Treasure it. But know that the light you carry now is no less sacred. You may no longer be in the full moon chapter of your life, but you are in the most reflective one, the most tender, the most honest. Let that be enough. Let your quiet be a blessing. Let your patience be your power. Let your stillness teach others how to be present. And when you feel like your light has gone out completely, just remember, the moon never disappears. It only hides for a while, before returning, again and again, with grace. So will you. And the people who truly love you, they don't need you to be perfect. They don't need you to shine all the time. They only need to know you're still there, still showing up, still being you. And you are beautiful, worthy, seen even in the shadows. 8. Life is like a flower, bloom boldly, fade gently, leave beauty behind. Some people live their whole lives chasing permanence, a perfect body, a lasting legacy, a house that never ages, a name that never fades. But nature teaches us something different. It shows us that the most beautiful things are not the ones that last forever, but the ones that bloom completely while they can. Think of the flower. It does not bloom all year. It does not resist the change of seasons. It does not panic when its petals begin to fall. It simply lives its moment, fully, openly, unapologetically. And then, when its time is done, it lets go, gracefully, returning its color, its fragrance, its presence, back to the soil that once held it. And in doing so, it leaves behind something no storm, no time, no forgetting can erase. Beauty. That's how life invites us to live. Especially now, in these later years. Not with fear of fading, but with the courage to bloom, and the grace to let go. When we are young, we want to be the brightest flower in the garden. We want to stand tall, be noticed, be admired. But age brings a softer desire, to offer fragrance, even if no one sees us, to nourish others, even when we are weary, to bloom not for applause but because it is in our nature to do so. And bloom you have. Think of all the seasons you've lived through. The springtime of childhood, when you were just learning what it meant to exist. Every experience was new. Every feeling was raw. You grew quickly, often without knowing what you were growing toward. Then came summer, young adulthood, passion, purpose. You may have married. You may have raised children. You may have chased dreams, worked long hours, carried too many burdens. You bloomed boldly. And often, you bloomed quietly, when no one noticed the effort it took just to stay standing. And now, perhaps, you are in the autumn of your life. A season not of decline, but of reflection. The petals may be fewer now. The colors may be softer. But the roots, oh, the roots have grown deep. They have weathered storms. They have held steady through droughts of love and floods of grief. They have anchored your being in something strong, silent, and sacred. And maybe, like the flower, you've had to bloom in difficult places. Maybe your garden wasn't always kind. Maybe the people around you didn't always water your soul. Maybe you had to grow in shadows before you ever saw the sun. But you grew anyway. And that, dear friend, is the quiet miracle of resilience. I once visited a hospice patient named Clara. She was 91, frail, fading, but she had a glow that filled the room. I asked her, "Do you feel afraid?" She smiled gently and said, "No, I've lived like a flower. I've given my color to the world, and now I'm just letting the wind carry me to where I belong." That kind of peace doesn't come from a perfect life. It comes from a life fully lived. And that is available to each of us. You don't need to be famous to leave behind a beautiful garden. You don't need money, or titles, or praise. You only need to live with heart. To be kind when you could have been cold. To listen when you could have turned away. To forgive when it hurt. To love, again and again, even when life gave you every reason not to. Every act of compassion you've ever offered. Every hug. Every prayer. Every homemade meal. Every hour spent with a lonely friend. Those are your petals. Those are the seeds you've planted. And long after you are gone, they will continue to bloom in others. So don't mourn your fading petals. Celebrate them. They mean you lived. They mean you gave. They mean you showed up for this world, even when it didn't always show up for you. And if you are in a season now where you feel overlooked, like the flower at the edge of the garden, no longer picked, no longer praised, please know this. You are still giving beauty, still giving shade, still giving quiet inspiration to those wise enough to see it. And if no one tells you today, let me be the one to say it. Thank you for blooming. Thank you for staying. Thank you for being here. You have made this world softer, warmer, more alive just by being yourself. So as this season unfolds, live like the flower. Open your arms to the sun. Stretch without shame. Let yourself be seen. And when the time comes, bow gently knowing you gave everything you had to give. And that, dear friend, is more than enough. 9. Life is like a book. You are the author of the greatest story you'll ever tell. From the moment we are born, our lives begin writing themselves. Not in ink, but in breath. Not on paper, but in the quiet space between each heartbeat. And if you've lived through the decades through love and loss, hope and disappointment, you've likely realized something profound. Life is a book. And not a short one. Not a magazine you skim through. Not a news article filled with urgency and noise. But a rich, layered, deeply human story. Written one chapter at a time. Sometimes with joy. Sometimes with sorrow. But always, always with meaning. When we are young, we don't think much about the story we are writing. We rush through the pages. We chase after the next thing. A job, a partner, a child, a house, a dream. We think, I'll slow down later. I'll reflect when I'm older. But now, in this season of life, you are older. You have slowed down. And the book in your hands, your life, is worth reading with care. So let me ask you, what have you written so far? Maybe the first chapters were messy. Maybe you came from hardship, or chaos, or silence. Maybe your family didn't speak love in the way you needed to hear it. Maybe you made mistakes, hurt others, hurt yourself. But even so, the pages kept turning. And there were chapters of laughter, of falling in love, of holding your child for the first time, of dancing in the kitchen, even when the bills piled high, of quiet triumphs no one else saw but you lived them, and they mattered. You have written loss into these pages, said goodbye to people you thought you could never live without, faced illnesses that made you question your own strength, woke up on days when the weight of grief felt too heavy to bear. But you kept writing. You kept showing up, turning the page, holding the pen even when your hands trembled. And now, here you are, perhaps on the last few chapters. And you wonder, what do I do with the rest of this story? The answer, dear friend, is simple. You finish it with heart. You write these final pages with tenderness, with forgiveness, with courage, with presence, because no one else gets to write this ending but you. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to make headlines. It only has to be true. There's something sacred about the later chapters in life. They move more slowly. There are fewer characters now, more silence, more time to reflect. But they hold the most wisdom, the deepest insight, the clearest voice. And it's that voice yours that the world still needs to hear. Not because it's loud, but because it's lived. I once sat with a retired teacher named Walter. He had Parkinson's. His speech was slow, but his eyes were full of light. He told me, every day, I wake up and I thank the story. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They taught me how to write the rest with more love. That's what I wish for you. That you will look back not with regret, but with reverence. That you will see your life not as broken, but as honest. Not as forgotten, but as felt. Not as fading, but as full. And if there are chapters you haven't finished, conversations left unsaid, love unspoken, forgiveness withheld, know this. It is never too late to write a new page. Pick up the phone. Write the letter. Say the prayer. Start the journal. Take the walk. Speak your truth. Bless your past. Because your story is still being written. And when the final page comes, whenever it does, may you close this book with peace, knowing you didn't waste your time trying to be someone else. That you lived. That you gave. That you forgave. That you loved. And that you were deeply, beautifully human. Remember this, dear friend. No one else can tell your story the way you can. No one else has lived your specific combination of grief and grace, of heartbreak and healing. Your book is yours. So write with truth. Write with soul. Write with all the ink you have left. And when others read it, your children, your grandchildren, your friends, even strangers who watched you live quietly but fully, they will find wisdom in your pages. They will find courage. They will find hope. They will find love. And that, in the end, is the purpose of every great book. Not to be perfect, but to leave something behind that makes the world feel more alive. So I ask you one last time, what story will you finish today? You have just walked with me through 9 reflections. 9 quiet truths that have lived inside you all along. Perhaps this video only helped you remember. We've spoken of life as a play, a blade of grass, a chessboard, a boat, a glass of wine, a song, a moon, a flower, and a book. And now, I ask you, what will you do with the time you have left? Will you chase perfection, or choose presence? Will you hold on to pain, or set it free? Will you compare, or simply bloom in your own light? I hope you choose love. I hope you choose peace. I hope you choose to keep writing, singing, blooming, rowing, forgiving, and shining no matter how late in the story you are. Because it's never too late to live more deeply, and never too early to be at peace. Thank you for spending this time with me. If these words have moved you, please subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment below to share which reflection spoke to your heart most deeply. And share this video with someone you love, someone who may need a gentle reminder that their story still matters. From my heart to yours, may your days be filled with light, your nights with rest, and your story with meaning.